if I do have to stun the blocker, some of the key points that we always talk about are vertical and horizontal leverage. By vertical leverage, I simply mean being lower than that guy and being underneath him. Horizontal leverage, we talk about our hand placement. So having our hands inside of his hands, that's horizontal leverage to us. So if I can have my hands here and he's out here, then I have an advantage over him. Once I'm in that position, I want to be the first one to lock out. So I want to have a lot of velocity when I go from here to here. I want to be strong in that, but I want to have fast lockout. If we stay in here tight like this, most linemen are stronger than us. They're going to hold on to us and keep us in tight like this. We want to create separation. Rubbing the ribs is the just term that we use for reminding them to keep their elbows inside. So if you rub your ribs with your elbow, you're going to keep your hands in the right spot. We want to strike with our palms and get our thumbs up when we hit. And then the last part is having our power foot in the ground, which is our near foot. So the same way that we tackle, when I'm taking on a blocker on an angle, I want to have that foot that I'm punching. I want to have the foot up to the blocker side. So I want to make sure that that's done. The next part is shedding him. So once I've done the punch, I want to create separation with that speed to lockout, and then I want to shed him low and away violently. So I want to go from here to here as fast as I can. The faster I can separate and put him down, the less chance that there's going to be that he can recover from that initial shock when I lock him out. And then bring your hands from high to low just simply means once I've locked out, I want to be underneath that guy and I've punched him and I'm here, my hands are high up on his breastplate, and now I'm bringing him low. So those are just coaching points to get them to visualize what we're talking about when we're explaining how we want them to shed. Here's a couple examples here. Watching the circled guy. He's coming through, gets the blocker, and really does a lot of good things here. So just breaking it down, he's got 2 feet in the ground because he's got, he's pretty much squared up with this blocker. But you can tell, number one, he's underneath the guy. He's won the vertical leverage. Number two, he's got his hands inside. You can see that guy's hands are around him. You can see him lock out the arms, and the guy just goes down. He may have tripped or whatever, but it wouldn't have mattered either way. We would have been able to lock that guy out because we won the vertical and horizontal leverage. We locked him out fast, and then we get in on the tackle. That's like picture perfect right there, example of where you want your hands to be. We're giving up at least 100 pounds to this particular dude right here. But it doesn't matter. If we've got good leverage, we can get off the blocks. Same thing here, watching the middle linebacker. So now we've punched, and we're working on steering that guy away from us. He's got his near foot up on the block, violently locking out and playing off. Most of the time, we're going to have to play off of some kind of block when we're making a tackle. So this is a good example of some of the stuff I'll show you in a minute of us playing off of a block and making a tackle at the same time. Hey, watching this guy in the boundary here, punching, separating, and he's peeking into his gap. That would be the last thing. For guys that are playing on the line of scrimmage, whether it's D lineman or our linebacker or buck in this case, he's up on the line of scrimmage and responsible for the C gap. He's going to punch, and he's going to peek around. But you can see he's got his hands inside that guy. He's lower than that guy, and he was the first one to lock out. He's going to win more times than not. Forces that ball to go back inside. I'll demonstrate this technique that we're using here with some drill footage later, but we call this the dent to long arm. We want to dent that guy, punch him, and then if we can, get him to a long arm like this guy does here. We're holding the edge, we've got as much separation as possible, and we're forcing that ball to go back inside when we're the edge player. Here's our buck again, circled there. So just going through some of the checkpoints here. So not necessarily has the power foot up, but he's got 2 feet in the ground. So we're still going to be powerful if we have 2 feet in the ground. He's won the vertical leverage. He's underneath that guy. He's got his hands inside. You can see that guy on his cuff. He's got his hands inside, snaps his head back when he punches him. So that means he was the first to lock out, and now we're able to create some separation. The ball has to go inside because we've shown our head in that gap. Okay, this is a good example of a drill that I'll show you in a second here. Our linebackers punch this guy. He's got his hat in his gap. The ball declares inside of him, and he sheds opposite. This is what we were talking about just a minute ago. We're going to punch. Our hands go from high to low. You can see his hands are up on his breastplate there, around his armpits. And then when he sheds, we're pulling him down and away. You can see that lineman, once he sheds him, he's leaning, and then he gets him to fall forward when he pulls him on the push-pull move. Just got to be violent with it. Now, when we're looking at slipping blocks, okay, so I call it avoiding the blocker. I don't want to say we're not running around guys. We're avoiding them. We're avoiding the blocker. So we want to close the distance at full speed. So if I'm running, say it's a jet sweep and the ball's way outside, and there's a lineman, in my way, I don't want to set up my move way too fast because that's slowing me down on the way to the ball. I want to close speed with the blocker as fast as possible. No matter whether we're stunning or shedding a block, we have to address the blocker. So what I mean by that is if I'm slipping a block, I can't just run way around him and just say, I'm not going to mess with this guy at all. I have to have a plan for getting around him. So closing speed is the first element to that. I want to get to the block as fast as I can so I can get around it as fast as I can. So by doing that, we want to attack half the man and not run straight at the guy. We want to run to one or the other shoulder. And then after that, we're going to change the blocking surface. So vertically, meaning like I'm going to run up to him, he's going to punch, I'm going to dip my shoulder, and I'm going to make him miss me that way. So vertically, I could change my pad level. Horizontally simply means he goes to punch my shoulder, and I'm going to, swipe his hand away, or I'm going to turn my shoulder and change the blocking surface. So one way or the other, the striking point that we're presenting to the blocker as we're sprinting at him has to change once we get to him. So it's either got to be here or it's got to be here. One or the other. And different guys are good at different things, so it's an individualized thing. Then the last part is to stack the blocker. So just like a receiver when he runs his route, once he gets past the corner, he wants to get back on top and stack the corner. That's the same thing with us with the blocker. If we don't stack the blocker, he may be able to turn around and cut us off. So some of the slip techniques that we use, I just talked about a couple of them, would be like an arm over, where we're going with the outside club, with the arm over the top. Take something out of his pocket just simply means we're going to reach and we want to finish down. So a lot of guys will swim and they'll go like this. You can't take something out of somebody's pocket when your hand's up here. So you want to go here and then down like that. Club rip, we're going here and then we're dipping underneath. So we're clearing that first arm and then we're dipping our shoulder to get under. And then just a straight dip and rip could be I'm running at the guy, I jab one way, I dip my shoulder, and then I'm ripping and finishing high to clear any hands off of me. I tell the guys if they've got a hand on their shoulder and they take their arm up to the sky, it's hard for someone to hold onto your shoulder when you're doing this, or hold onto your armpit when you're clearing their hand like this. So we want to finish that rip up high. And then anytime we're slipping, we want to make sure we stack that guy. So here's a couple examples here. Middle linebacker, a fast outside play. This lineman comes up to block him here. And he's got a pretty good angle on him. So he decides to go underneath the block. Just a quick jab. And you can see he works the arm over, the club arm over too. So when I talk to my guys about slipping blocks, a lot of times a little jab goes a long way. So here, the linebacker takes just that little step with his right foot. That little jab there gets the lineman continuing to run upfield. And then once the lineman's moving one way and we change direction, 9 times out of 10, we've got them beat because they're not fast enough to readjust. So